Renter's insurance for your tenants needs to be required, verified, and enforced. And if me telling you this on a YouTube video isn't enough reason, my 3 horror stories today will certainly convince you. I'm Jennifer Rowlands, landlord, educator, advocate, and broker of One Focus Property Management. Something I find time and time again with rental property investors is that they strongly encourage or sometimes even require renter's insurance in their leases, but they never, ever, ever check up on it until they have a suspicion that there's going to be an issue. And I'm here to tell you that that is the wrong way to go. And I've got 3 incredible stories that will tell you just how easy it is to lose track of this and have a loss that may not cost you money, but it will certainly cost you time in handling it. My first story comes from early in my time in property management. This was about 2005, and I was managing a very large apartment community, and I got a call from one of my tenants. So there was an on-site office, and I was in the leasing office, and one of my tenants called and said, "Hey, my neighbor, I'm looking out my window and their deck is on fire." So these were garden style apartments that had a patio on the first floor and then a balcony for the second floor tenant. And these were regular pressure treated 2x4 balconies, and that theirs was on fire. So I grabbed a fire extinguisher, ran into my car, drove up to that part of the property, and was able to really quickly put the fire out. But here's what's wild. What was burnt straight through the 2x4 was a hole exactly that big, about a foot away from the vinyl siding of the property. And it did melt a little bit of the vinyl siding, but this hole was burned straight through the 2x4. So how did this happen? Well, the tenant liked to smoke cigarettes outside on their balcony, which is something I was very happy because we didn't allow smoking inside the properties. But this glass mason jar where he collected his ashes and his cigarette filters caught on fire. Now this ashtray didn't catch on fire, but the mason jar he used sitting on the wood magnified the sunlight so that it burnt a hole straight through that wood. Something that I would not have thought, a simple accident, a freak accident, but one that was covered by their renter's insurance. So we were able to get that fixed. They submitted a claim to their renter's insurance and it was all taken care of for just a couple $100s. My second story today also comes from an apartment community where there was one tenant living above another. So in this scenario, the upstairs tenant worked nights, the downstairs tenant worked days, a conventional schedule. So this was during the workday. The downstairs tenant was at their job and they had just went on a shopping spree. They had bought new leather furniture and lots of electronics, stereo electronics, and they were all in the living room. This person had just made all these purchases. They had just moved in and all of that was in their living room. Now upstairs, the tenant who worked nights came home after a day at work, used the commode, flushed it, and then it overflowed. But he didn't notice. He went to sleep, fell asleep immediately, and didn't notice the toilet flooding the apartment. So the water poured out for several hours until the upstairs tenant woke up and realized, called us. We were able to come out and stop the water. And of course we dealt with the cleanup, but there was a considerable amount of personal belongings damaged, not only to the upstairs tenant, but you guessed it, the downstairs tenant. And when water flows, it finds any way to get closer to the earth because of gravity. And in this case, those joists ran right into a smoke detector and light fixture in the living room where all that water poured down onto that first floor tenant's new possessions. This was a case where I'm so glad we had renter's insurance in place because renter's insurance covered both the unintentional damage that the upstairs tenant caused and the damage to the personal belongings of the tenants. The third story I would share with you today comes from my time in working at a different large apartment community. And at this point, it was in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania market, and we were getting Verizon Fios, the fiber optic cabling. And so that was being run all over town. And as you got onto properties and had to get closer to the buildings, they were hand digging these lines. So the Verizon contract workers were out there digging for a couple of days, and one of the workers must have hit the electric line going into a 4-unit building. So they hit this line, which caused a power surge into the building that fried absolutely anything that was plugged in. Your toaster ovens, your alarm clocks, your televisions, laptops. I mean, you can go with me on this and think about just how far and reaching that is in a 4-unit building. And so that was a renter's insurance claim. That's not the responsibility of us. And while it's technically maybe the responsibility of Verizon, and if I recall, there was some communication back and forth, but the renter's insurance did cover much of this for our tenants. There were 1 or 2 tenants who weren't using renter's insurance to that property, and they were very significantly upset, and understandably, but they had the same requirement as everyone else, and as such ran that risk. So I've shared with you just 3 stories today about how renter's insurance is an extremely important thing to require of your tenants, verify that they have it in place, and then enforce it when they decide to stop coverage or for some reason cancel it. And so I'm encouraging you today, if that's a requirement in your leases, to go to your tenants and check on it. Verify that they have it. Verify that that coverage is in force and in effect. And if you can, get added as additionally insured or additionally interested on the policy. So that if there's any changes to that policy, they stop it, you'll get a notice. And that will do some of the enforcement for you. I know you're thinking, I really don't want to be doing these sorts of things. It's not in my passive investment playbook. But here's the thing, I want this passive investment to stay passive for you. So I would rather give you some of these prescriptions for preventive action versus teaching you how to navigate a really messy situation once it happens. These videos are the most fun to make for you. I hope you'll let me know what you think. Leave us a comment below or share it with a friend. But at least give us a like and a subscribe and follow us on Facebook. Have a great day.